Just a few short weeks ago, Shedeur Sanders was being paraded around as the Cleveland Browns' new era, a fresh face of the franchise, a beacon of hope in an organization known more for imploding quarterbacks than developing them. But now, the fairy tale is in ashes. Trade rumors are swirling, fans are rioting, literally and digitally, and the Browns' front office looks like it's hosting a full-blown civil war. It all started with a benching. Not just any benching, a public, humiliating, completely unjustifiable benching during a critical preseason game. And it didn't go unnoticed. Let's set the scene. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. The Browns are in the middle of a tense preseason stretch. Every snap matters. Every decision feels like a final exam. Shedeur had been balling, leading in key preseason stats, showing command, leadership, composure. This wasn't a rookie playing scared. This was a QB ready. And then, bam, he's pulled, benched, not because of an interception, not because of a blown coverage read, but because, apparently, Kevin Stefanski just felt like it. And who comes in to replace him? Dillon Gabriel. The same Dillon Gabriel who'd been struggling in camp. The same one who hadn't looked remotely NFL ready in the snaps he'd gotten. And that's who you hand the keys to? It wasn't just confusing, it was shady. Fans knew it. Players knew it. And Shedeur? He knew it, too. But here's where the story stops being about football and starts becoming a full-on scandal. Because that one decision exposed something rotten inside the Browns organization. Players started whispering. Rumors started flying. And then, like wildfire, it all spilled out. This wasn't a coaching decision. This wasn't about strategy. This was personal. A source inside the building confirmed it. Shedeur's benching wasn't performance-based. It was part of a larger internal conflict, one that pitted Stefanski against ownership, divided the locker room, and revealed a brutal truth no one wanted to say out loud. The Browns don't know what the hell they're doing. There were whispers that Stefanski had been uncomfortable with Shedeur from day one, that he didn't want to fast-track a rookie quarterback into a starting role, that his old-school football mentality clashed with the new-school energy and spotlight that Shedeur brought. And while Stefanski may not have said it outright, his decision said plenty. But it gets deeper, because behind closed doors, Joe Flacco, yes, still hanging around like a relic of playoff past, was reportedly influencing the QB room dynamic. According to insiders, Flacco didn't believe Shedeur was mentally ready. He was lobbying for a more traditional rookie development curve, whatever that means in a league where 21-year-olds are starting playoff games. And somehow, someway, that mindset started shaping the coaching strategy. So now you've got Shedeur leading the preseason stat sheets, getting benched for no reason, being whispered about in strategy rooms like he's a liability, not a leader. Meanwhile, Flacco and Gabriel get more snaps, more chances, more time. And the fans? They explode. You don't just mess with a young star like that and expect silence. Social media went ballistic. Fans started organizing protests outside the Browns facility. Free Shedeur trended for days. TikTok edits, Instagram rants, YouTube breakdowns. This wasn't just backlash. It was a movement. Even more shocking, the locker room started pushing back. 2. Multiple players went to bat for Shedeur privately, and a few not so privately. David Njoku reportedly confronted staff about the decision. A defensive starter was overheard in practice calling it a joke. And while the team tried to keep a lid on it, the lid had already flown off, hit the ceiling, and shattered on the floor. But wait! It gets worse. Corporate sponsors started getting nervous. Shedeur isn't just a player. He's a brand. Endorsements, college hype, Deion Sanders' son. The man moves merchandise. So when the Browns decided to bench their marketable new star and potentially move him off the active roster, yeah, brands noticed. Money got involved. Suddenly, this wasn't just a sports controversy. It was a business nightmare. Then the trade rumors started. A few well-placed insiders hinted that Shedeur's camp was exploring options. Contract negotiations were being reevaluated. Legal avenues were being discussed. The word toxic environment made its way into the press. Suddenly, it wasn't about Cleveland developing Shedeur. It was about Cleveland surviving the fallout of losing him. And honestly, can you blame him? Why would any young quarterback stay with a team that's clearly divided over whether or not they even want him? Why stick around in a system that uses you when convenient and tosses you the moment it becomes politically inconvenient? What started as a benching has snowballed into a cultural war between modern football and old-school grit, between flashy, confident stars and stubborn, outdated coaching, between player empowerment and team control. And the Browns? They're in the middle of it all, flailing. So where does this go next? The trade talk isn't just noise. There are reportedly real conversations happening behind the scenes about teams that will be willing to give Shedeur a legitimate shot. Franchises that need a young QB with mobility, accuracy, and confidence. Teams that aren't afraid to take a chance. Because let's be honest, Shedeur may not be perfect, but he's a hell of a lot better than the mess Cleveland's making of him. Meanwhile, inside the Browns facility, things are tense. Stefanski is on the hot seat. Ownership is divided. The players are restless. And the fans? They're losing faith fast. It's not just about Shedeur anymore. It's about the identity of the franchise, the trust, the message being sent to every young player watching. If this is how they treat him, how will they treat me? And that, right there, is why this moment matters. Because it's not just about one preseason game, or one benching, or even one trade. It's about what kind of team the Browns are going to be moving forward. Are they building a culture of development, trust, and vision? Or are they just another dysfunctional franchise choking on their own politics? Time's running out. The front office is either going to fix this or fumble yet another quarterback into the abyss. The clock is ticking, Cleveland. And Shedeur Sanders? He's already halfway out the door. While most of the headlines are still screaming about the benching, and fans are busy arguing over whether Shedeur Sanders is being traded or just tactically iced out, there's an even juicier layer unraveling behind the scenes. One that involves politics, money, pride, and maybe the Browns' deepest fear, accountability. Let's talk about Kevin Stefanski for a second. You'd think after coaching a franchise with graveyard quarterbacks, he'd be a little more careful about alienating a potential franchise player. But here's what's really wild. Multiple insiders are now hinting that Stefanski's future with the team is quietly tied to how he handles this situation. That's right. The Shedeur Sanders drama might not just end in a trade. It could cost Stefanski his job. Why? Because ownership is panicking. This isn't just some rookie mistake they can spin away. This is a full-on identity crisis, unfolding in front of sponsors, agents, sports media, and players who are side-eyeing every press conference with the energy of, "Oh, really? That's your explanation?" The Browns made such a big deal out of drafting Shedeur, positioning him as the heir to their quarterback curse, parading him as the face of their youth movement. And now they're sabotaging him before the season even starts? It's giving damage control, but it's also giving power play. Rumor has it, Stefanski was never fully on board with the Shedeur pick, that it was a decision pushed by upper management. He wanted a more experienced system quarterback, someone he could plug into his playbook without having to change the way he runs things. Shedeur, by contrast, is dynamic. He improvises. He's got that flashy, confident, I can win this my way energy. And if there's one thing an old-school control freak hates, it's a quarterback who doesn't color inside the lines. So instead of adjusting the scheme to highlight Sanders' strengths, Stefanski doubled down on trying to fit Shedeur into his vision. And when that didn't immediately click, cue the benching, cue the shift to Gabriel, cue the entire locker room watching like, did that just happen? But wait, it gets even more tense. Behind the scenes, the Browns' quarterback coach and offensive coordinator are reportedly split on what to do next. One side believes Shedeur's ceiling is too high to give up on. The other thinks the pressure, the media noise, and the primetime legacy is becoming too much of a distraction. Translation, they're not just divided on football, they're divided on optics. Because let's be real, when your quarterback's dad is Deion Sanders, everything becomes bigger. Every decision is dissected. Every bad drive turns into a storyline. The The cameras never turn off. And for an organization like Cleveland, who struggles with even basic media messaging, that spotlight is starting to burn. There's now internal debate over whether Shedeur's fame is helping or hurting the team. Like, what? You signed up for the Sanders experience, and now you're complaining about the spotlight? Make it make sense. And while they're busy arguing about media strategy and locker room vibes, other teams are watching closely because the NFL is a vulture league, and when one franchise fumbles talent, another is ready to swoop in. Word is, at least 3 teams have already made back-channel inquiries about Shedeur's status. Not official trades yet, but the NFL equivalent of, if y'all don't want him, and you can bet Shedeur's camp hears that loud and clear. They're not sitting quietly. They're pulling receipts, stacking evidence, documenting every snap, every interview, every weird coaching decision. Because if this goes to trade negotiations, or worse, a legal showdown, there's going to be a lot of explaining to do, especially after that preseason tape showed Shedeur outperforming both Gabriel and Flacco in almost every meaningful category. And let's not forget the emotional toll. You've got a 22-year-old quarterback, fresh out of college, stepping into one of the most chaotic franchises in football, and within weeks, he's in the center of a war, not because of lack of effort, not because of immaturity, but because the people above him couldn't get on the same page. And through all of this, he's handled it with class. No diva tweets, no leaked tantrums, no sources say Shedeur is unhappy. Just silence, work, show up and play mentality. And that's what's making fans rally behind him even harder. Because it's not just that he's good, it's that he's handling all this like a veteran. Meanwhile, the front office is leaking trial balloons to the media. It's about competition. He needs more time. We're evaluating all options. Come on, nobody's buying it. You don't evaluate your rookie phenom after one bad practice. You develop him. You coach him. You believe in him. But no, Cleveland is too busy playing chess with its own players. Even team legends are starting to get vocal. Retired Browns players are hinting at dysfunction on social media, calling out the front office's lack of leadership, and how this would never fly in a winning culture. When your alumni are subtweeting your coaching staff, that's not a red flag. That's a full-on siren. Oh, and while we're at it, there's another wild card in all of this. Deion. Coach Prime has been remarkably quiet about the whole ordeal. But let's not forget who we're talking about. This is a man who built his son into a national brand, moved him from Jackson State to Colorado, turned college football on its head, and dominated media headlines while doing it. You really think he's going to let Cleveland waste Shedeur without stepping in? If this thing goes nuclear, and it might, you better believe Deion stepping out of the shadows with a microphone and a folder full of receipts. So yeah, the trade rumors are heating up. But this is way bigger than a trade. This is about what kind of franchise Cleveland wants to be. One that finally breaks the cycle and builds something sustainable, or one that keeps sabotaging itself from the inside out. And let's say the trade does happen. Where does Shedeur go? Somewhere with structure, somewhere with vision, somewhere that values growth over control. Imagine him landing in a system like Detroit or Seattle, or even backing up in Kansas City under Mahomes for a year before getting the reins. Anywhere but Cleveland at this point feels like an upgrade, because when your home franchise treats you like a marketing prop instead of player, the only move left is out. And maybe that's the final twist in all this. Maybe the Browns weren't ready for Shedeur, not because of who he is, but because of what he represents. Change, confidence, culture, and that's something Cleveland still doesn't know how to handle. Let's not underestimate what Shedeur Sanders brought to this team beyond the field. Before he even threw a pass, he rebranded the Browns. For a minute there, it wasn't just sad Cleveland memes and playoff drought flashbacks. It was excitement, hope, national interest. Jersey sales were spiking. Primetime was trending. And let's be honest, for a franchise that spent the last 2 decades being the NFL's punchline, that kind of energy doesn't come easy. But now, that energy is turning on them. Fans who were all in on the Shedeur era are pulling back. Season ticket holders are reportedly flooding support lines with demands, asking if there will be refunds if Sanders is traded. Social media pages are flooded with thousands of comments per post, most of them furious. The official Browns account can't even drop a harmless training camp clip without getting ratioed into oblivion by angry fans quoting "Free Shedeur." And for the front office, that's the worst kind of PR storm. Because once you lose the fans, really lose them, it doesn't matter who you trot out at quarterback. You've already burned the bridge. Want to talk receipts? Look at the pre-order numbers on Shedeur's Browns merch. Insiders say he was on pace to outsell nearly every Browns player not named Myles Garrett. Now those same jerseys are sitting in carts, unpurchased. Why would anyone rep a player the team clearly doesn't support? And sponsors? Oh, they're watching too. The corporate brands who lined up for endorsements, those fun little local tie-ins and national campaigns, are going quiet. No one wants to hitch their wagon to a team being accused of sabotaging its own rookie quarterback. Not in 2025. Not in this PR climate. And this is where Cleveland's leadership might have massively miscalculated. They saw Shedeur as a football decision. But Shedeur isn't just a football player. He's a media presence, a walking, talking headline. His influence stretches across sports, culture, fashion, and entertainment. The Sanders name is generational, which means you can't just bench him and expect it to be a local news story. What they fail to realize is, when you fumble Shedeur, you fumble the brand. Let's talk about the locker room again, but from a slightly different angle. Yes, there are players speaking out, but there's another group that's getting increasingly uncomfortable, the rookies, the younger guys, the ones watching this all unfold and silently wondering, is this how it's going to be when it's my turn? Because what kind of message are you sending to your draft class when your top prospect, your golden pick, gets iced out not because of performance, but because of politics? It creates fear. It creates tension. And it destroys trust in leadership. We're hearing whispers of private meetings. Players huddled up without coaches. Guys checking in with each other. Team captains caught between loyalty to the franchise and loyalty to their teammates. This isn't just one player's drama anymore. It's infecting the team culture. And while Cleveland tries to run damage control, other teams are taking notes because chaos is contagious. And the last thing a front office wants in August is for a quarterback controversy to evolve into a full-blown morale collapse. You want to know how that happens? One day it's we bench him to evaluate other options, and the next it's a mutual parting of ways. Then suddenly, the guy you were calling the future of your franchise is on the practice squad in Atlanta, and you're left holding a clipboard full of regrets. Let's get into another juicy angle here. The agent drama. Shedeur's representation is no joke. These aren't the types to sit around waiting for an email from the PR team. Behind closed doors, they're already strategizing every angle, from trade negotiations to potential image rehab after release, if it gets that far. And don't underestimate how much pressure agents can exert. They have the ears of other GMs. They can spin a player's story faster than the team's media team ever could. So if the Browns thought this would die down with time, they're about to learn a very public, very expensive lesson in modern sports optics. And here's a spicy twist, the Deion factor. No, he hasn't spoken out publicly yet, but the silence is loud. You just know Coach Prime is watching this whole circus unfold like a general in the war room. The man built a media empire around his name, and now his son's in the middle of a public mess caused, at least partially, by ego clashes and lack of leadership. He's waiting, calculating, because when he does break his silence, it's going to dominate headlines. It's going to make ESPN drop what they're doing. And it's probably going to put the final nail in whatever fragile trust still exists between the Sanders camp and Cleveland leadership. It's not if, it's when. Now, let's step back and ask the obvious. If you're another team watching this unfold, how do you not immediately slide into the DMs of Sanders' representation and say, hey, we'd actually build around him? Because there's something else in play here. Revenge. Every player who's ever been benched unfairly. Every quarterback who's been scapegoated. Every athlete who's been told to be quiet and wait their turn. They see Shedeur. They feel this. And you better believe there are GMs out there who want to be the guy who scooped up the discarded star and turned him into a league winner. Imagine the storyline. Shedeur Sanders gets cut by Cleveland, signs a mid-tier team, and by week 8, he's lighting up the fences and reminding everyone that all he ever needed was belief. ESPN would be frothing. NFL Films would already be scripting the docuseries. And the Browns? They'd be the villain in someone else's comeback movie. So here we are, a franchise unraveling under the weight of its own indecision, a young star being crushed between competing egos, a fan base that's turning from hopeful to hostile in real time. And it's all happening before a single regular season snap. If Cleveland doesn't fix this fast, they're not just going to lose Shedeur Sanders. They're going to lose the trust of their locker room, their fan base, and the future stars watching from college who will remember exactly how this team treated one of their own. Because in the modern NFL, the worst thing you can be is a team that wasted greatness. Let us know. Does Shedeur still have a future in Cleveland, or is this already over? What team should pick him up if he gets cut or traded? And don't forget to subscribe, because if the Browns are burning down the house, you better believe we're showing up to watch with popcorn